Hello guys! Welcome everyone, for those who've been around for a while, back to yet again another episode of Mando Monday. This is the series where you guys ask the questions and I, of course, answer them. That can be to do with any related to Counter-Strike 2, Valve, future upcoming updates such as CS2's first operation or possibly anti-cheat, or maybe it's about the background or myself. Today's video is the second episode back in almost a year from Mando Monday. We're to touch on CS2's market, the first operation, problems with the current map pool inside the game, alongside a bunch more. Now today's video sponsor is Skins Monkey. Skins Monkey is a CS2 trading site for all your skin needs. Whether you're choosing to deposit your in-game items or real-life cash, Skins Monkey has it all. If you choose to trade yet need to top up your balance, you can do so by also using my code MANDO for a free $5. Alongside depositing, you get an additional 35% of a deposit bonus. With Skins Monkey's large variety of skins, they also offer daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. If interested, the link will be in the top of the description down below. Our first question up here is in regards to the CS2 skins market. This guy says, why are skin prices so high? For example, a few months ago, driver gloves racing green were around 45 euros, now they're above 80. Well, firstly, this was actually a really good question. I also really appreciate you giving an example of what actually went up, especially in your inventory. And to answer why skin prices have gone up so high for, well, this short amount of time that's been 2024, let's go back to the end of CSGO in 2023. So around a month or two before CS2 was actually even announced or revealed by Valve, skin prices were already pretty high, but as soon as the leaks started becoming really, well, real, you had very credible esports journalists such as Richard Lewis putting out articles saying Source 2 Counter-Strike is on its way, skin prices began to shoot up like we haven't ever seen before, at least at that point. And then when CS2 actually got announced, they continued to rise when most people thought they'd fall, drop off a little bit, but no, and then limited tests came out. They began to shoot up even more. And that of course leads to CS2's release, where they bottomed even more. Now the reason that happened was because the expectations for CS2 were just simply too high. It's very similar to Half-Life 3. When and if ever that comes out, I don't believe it's going to live up to the expectation and hype that it's, well, been 20 years now since the last game came out. I just simply don't think Valve is going to be able to do that. And here we are right now in the current day in August of 2024, CS2 in just a little under 50 days is going to be a year old. And there really hasn't been much change in regards to content. And skins and stickers also still need to get reverted or updated to the newer models, as well as just to overall look better inside CS2 versus how they did in CSGO. Now for why skin prices are going up so much in a very short period of time, we can also very well compare that to player count as well. The game for most people is not in the greatest state. There's dozens of bugs, mainly to do with subtick and networking, as well as some skins here and there, but at the end of the day, it is still Counter-Strike, and Counter-Strike in most players' eyes, especially Valve, is an evergreen title. So whatever releases for Counter-Strike, whatever doesn't, for how much effort Valve puts into the game, there's still going to be players and people who buy skins. And that's pretty much what's been happening since the beginning of 2024, despite them going up and down, as well as we can also just touch on and look into, well, just supply and demand. We used to get 5 to 6 cases that release a year. Now we get around maybe 1 to 2, 2 if we're lucky, and with no operation as well. So the skins we already have in the game, especially agents for an example, and gloves, there's not too many that release every single year, or sometimes even every other year. So the ones we have are pretty limited quantity until the next batch of whatever item you have, especially that's pretty rare, such as an agent or maybe gloves, they're going to be pretty high in value. And even then, they're probably still going to continue to go up. Now our second question up here is from Bishi CS in regards to CS2 Summer Pass or new content. He says, I tend to think Valve for the most part waited for summer to pass, then to release content for the game, waiting for people to get back on their PCs, making a nice return for late August, early September, where people are back in school for Counter-Strike. What do you guys think? Or specifically for this question, what do I think? Now to answer that, it's like a lot of questions we get from Mando Monday, it's a yes and no answer. If you look at the recent player count for CS2 over the last few years, especially in those summer months, or maybe May to early September, player count for not just Counter-Strike, but practically every other game just drops immediately. If that's Counter-Strike, Dota 2, Call of Duty, for instance, even though that's not by Valve, simply like you put it in your question, people just go outside. They go do other things, hang out with their friends, socialize, go touch grass. And a kind of deep dive to answer your question, I don't really think Valve waited for, well, the summer month to end. Valve in the past has released cases, new content, and operation in the summertime, or at least near the summertime. Now it doesn't really tend to happen anymore. More so that's the old age of Counter-Strike, we're now in the new. But I believe this is also just a hard truth for most CS players that they don't really want to hear. And that's that Valve, in my opinion, is just not ready for an operation or any sort of new content. Mainly because of the state of the game right now, with all the cheaters, bugs, and when I mean bugs, I don't say that lightly. There is literally a new bug almost discovered every single day, and there's some that have been dating back to the limited tests that have yet to be fixed, and those continue to grow every single day as well as we don't even have the basics of content, that being from a decade-old game being CSGO. So until we have some new bug fixes, maybe some older content from CSGO, I don't really think Valve is going to release anything huge. But what I will say is with this recent Copenhagen Major sale, that's supposed to get removed within the next couple of weeks. Now this is just a very rough guess, but I believe tomorrow, that being Friday on August the 9th, at least by that point, I believe Valve is probably going to release something, that being most likely a case and alongside music kit, while also removing the sticker sale, since Valve never likes to overlap any sort of sale with a new case or any sort of new content. But thanks for your question, brother. I feel like in your question as well, you were trying to give Valve the benefit of the doubt. As much as I want to agree with you and want to believe that myself, I just don't see that right now. And I haven't really for the past couple of years. Our third question up here is from Ripstar CS, and he says, what new game mode would you like to see inside CS2? 100% new, not from CSGO. Is there any modes from other games you'd like to see and would work well inside Counter-Strike 2? So first off, very good question. And maybe Valve, if anyone ever will watch this video, they could take some notes, because we do need new content inside CS2 as well as new modes, because the classic default modes are great, but there's also long forgotten modes, one such as Danger Zone, a Battle Royale, Flying Scoutsman, just the basic necessities of CSGO. But as it stands for something new that I'd like to see, I'm gonna look to more of the respawn games and game modes from those games, such as Call of Duty for instance. I'd love to see a respawn type mode, such as Capture the Flag, or something like where there's zero gravity, but we already have that obviously with Flying Scoutsman, maybe with just normal weapons. Maybe the accuracy and just the sprays work differently in that area. Maybe they could have their own map, their own mode. Maybe there could be something meshed together from Half-Life, Portal, all into Counter-Strike since they're all Valve-owned titles, but I honestly feel like that would never happen because Valve doesn't really ever do that, especially for CS. As well as I'd love to see a 1v1 room similar to Gunfight from Call of Duty, that being from Modern Warfare 2019. I can't tell you how many websites over the last 4 or 5 years, or dating back, let's just say to 2014, 2015 CS, I can't remember what it was called, maybe it was kickback.com, that being for CSGO, where you could 1v1 people for some money. Now, it wasn't much, it'd be like 50 cents a match, sometimes you could go higher if you were a high baller, but the only problem with that is there would be cheaters up the wazoo. They could also have their own ranking system just for that mode, or just a different mode Valve would add to Counter-Strike. But honestly, if I had to pick a brand new mode that would just be for Counter-Strike 2, yeah, it would be a mesh together of Half-Life, Portal, just into Counter-Strike. I just think that would be really creative, really, really cool. Valve, I don't even think would have to do most of the work because most of the community, I believe, would probably mod it if they were asked to, or if the idea became popular enough. Thanks for the question, brother. Let me know what you guys think down below of what kind of new game mode you'd like to see inside CS2. If that's from any other game, maybe different modes from different games meshed together, such as the Half-Life and Portal situation that I discussed. With that being said, hop on to question 4. But very quickly before we hop on to question 4, I do want to mention if there is a change of tone in my voice, or just things sound different overall. I did take a quick break over the weekend, but we are back here on Sunday before this gets uploaded Monday. With that being said, here we are with question 4 by The Missing One. He says, what do you think about preferences in playing maps? I know that everyone prefers maps over others, but I often run into people who insta-ban a map and say they hate it, where my thinking is, well, how are you going to get better at the map if you don't play it? And I completely agree with you. And I also will say it doesn't matter if you play Faceit, any other third-party service, or matchmaking such as, well, normal MM or Premier. There is a category of those players which I would say this specific group of people is probably 80% of the population, especially in just CS, matchmaking, and Premier servers. And I also think it's for a very good reason. For example, myself, a map that I don't love very much, that I also haven't really given too much of a shot, especially learning smokes because it's so new, is Ancient. This for me, almost every single game is an insta-ban. I just don't like it. I don't get the greatest frames. Playing on the T side for me anyway, past pistol round is near impossible because the CTs just outsmoke you, no certain boosts, go to places that I just don't really know, and yes, I'm not really going to get better at it if I don't play. The same thing goes, well, if you play with better people, you're going to get better over time because you're going to learn the higher up strategies than, well, just playing as a silver. As well as I also want to mention, for insta-ban maps, I think you also, and just this goes for everybody here, you have to consider other people's perspectives. Most people get off work, they want to play CS with their friends, or maybe alone. Maybe you just have some time to themselves, and the time they'll play is maybe only a couple hours, or maybe 45 minutes, where they're just very much cutting close to one game, and in that time, maybe only a couple times a week, they don't want to play a map they don't really in particularly love, or really hate. And I think a simple change on Valve's end could just be to add more maps, and especially ones back from older Counter-Strike games that Valve, well, and the community knows that we already enjoy in the first place. Now, I've said this dating back a few years ago during the start of the channel and throughout commentaries throughout the years. I think seeing a hostage mode and a hostage map on, let's just say, the major main stage, that would be pretty awesome. Now, if that will happen, probably never, but would definitely switch things up, make things more refreshing and interesting, and make it seem like there's less of a void, especially when maps inside Counter-Strike. Now, next question up here is in regards to CS2's Competition. Do you think there's any hope for CS2's Competition because it looks like a dead game? Now, I'm just going to quickly go into how I feel about it, take some of my friends' perspectives, some of the community's point of views when it comes to CS2, at least right now. The hard truth, in my opinion, is that CS, yes, right now isn't in the best spot, but it's still, if you look at the player numbers, how many cases are open, and how much Valve makes, it's still one of the most played monthly games on Steam, let alone competitive esports shooters, as well as has a booming skins economy. Now, I've stated this in dozens of commentaries in the past, especially Mando Monday, but CS, according to the community, has died time and time yet again. Yet right now, we're still holding over 1 million players a month. Players thought CS was gonna die when Danger Zone got released, when Fortnite was booming, PUBG was at its high, H1Z1 took over, iBuyPower got banned in 2014, as well as a lot of people do when CS2 released. The same thing goes back when CSGO did after CS Source. Instead, right now, we just have more players, more money, and it's a different game, yet still named Counter-Strike. As it goes for Counter-Strike's Competition, you have Valorant, you have Shroud's new game called The Spectre Divide, which in my opinion looks horrendous, is a ripoff of Valorant and further goes into Counter-Strike. And then you also have Valorant, which in my opinion is also terrible. It's literally just Overwatch with abilities, but where things are better in a game like Valorant and how the community inside CS sees it is that there are things such as abilities that they don't like, but the company running it, that being Riot, has an anti-cheat, has better servers, has a multitude of maps, dozens of more content, but Counter-Strike at the end of the day is an evergreen title, and it's just also a game and franchise that just can't die. And our second to last question up for today's episode of Mando Monday is from Rookie, an OG of the channel. Welcome back, brother. He says, do you think we need to do agent case / contracts? The price of operation ones are crazy, and I couldn't really agree more. So long story short, prices for operators right now inside CS2 are absolutely crazy, but I do think the next operation will include a boatload more. It's just a matter of when we're going to get that, and I just don't know when that's going to be. If you look at the facts, it's been 3 years since Operation Riptide released. The supply right now is extremely low, as well as limited, and the same goes with Broken Fang and Shattered Web. It's just Shattered Web didn't really have too many desirable agents, even right now. The only reason some are picking up traction over the past few months and right now is because all the other ones are so expensive, and you can get a different change of play with an operator for pretty cheap. Now, this is all my opinion, so take it as you will, but I don't really think a case for operators for CS2 is ever going to be on the table. I think it's most likely just going to stay an operation reward. It's just this time around, I think they're going to be more obtainable. There's going to be a lot more supply because there's a lot more Counter-Strike players who will probably invest, but also just hoard by just getting stars, as well as there'll be a lot more options to choose from. At least that's what I hope. Now, a different perspective that I don't see discussed too much on YouTube, let alone Twitter, especially in the CS economy, is if Valve released yearly operations with the new agents, prices wouldn't be so much of a problem, but also they wouldn't feel so special in the first place, let alone skins. This is just skins in general, not just operators. Now, ending off this question, I will say that adding more free default agents would be very nice. Multiple other games such as Valorant, esports shooters that are similar have this, as well as female default operators, or agents. I know I've said operators quite a bit, but it's the same thing in my opinion. And with that being said, this leads us to the last question for today's video. Our last question for today's video is more of a comment than a question, but he says, am I the only one who thinks they'll release an operation in the 1 year mark, that being Valve? Now, answering this question or more so commenting on it is just by looking at the past, Valve really never set specific dates, that being for releases for games, let alone content in them. Right now, leaks suggest that Valve is working on releasing DEADLOCK, as they have rolled out a bunch of limited tests or more so betas for it, and you can check just by going to Steam or checking your email if you've been invited. And this, for an example, is a brand new title that they've probably been working on for the last few years. But this also goes into maybe some of the reason that Valve doesn't like to talk or more so answer the question when something's going to release, either being for a title or DLC, is because they don't know. They want to roll things polished out. But then again, if you look at CS2's release, it was a completely different story. We were in the limited test for 6 months to a year, and some people would argue right now, even though it is the full release, it still feels like the limited test. Valve's also working on a new project that very well could be Half-Life 3, but we don't really know. There's no release dates, and I don't believe we're even going to hear anything until we get an official trailer, which could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, we don't really know. As well as not to mention that CS2 in the state that it's in right now, in my opinion, it's not going to be receiving an operation anytime soon because it's going to do more harm than good for the community. And as it stands for answering or more so commenting on your question, that's really what I believe right there, is that releasing an operation right now in Valve's eyes, as well as a lot of the communities, yes, it's going to make Valve a whole lot of cash, but just judging by a simple update such as last week's, the first one in almost a month, it was just a few simple bug fixes while adding a couple of things. It completely broke the game when they had to roll out another update and an update after that, let alone they haven't been updating the game for broken bugs that have been here since launch, let alone a new one gets discovered every week. So imagine getting 10 to 15 gigabytes worth of content that's going to be completely broken and buggy until the end of the operation. Now for me, I wouldn't really want that. But on the other hand of things, Valve does Valve things and they release things on Valve time. So next week we could see a bunch of banner changes and they could roll something out. We don't really know. With all that being said, that pretty much wraps up today's episode of Mando Monday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any questions you want a shot at being answered for next week's video, leave it down below of this comment section or any other one of my videos saying ask Mando, then ask your question. It's usually easiest and best for me to find it that way. As it stands for some of my content, we have a few things going out for CS2 esports, Valve's new ruling, the brand new snap tap ability inside Counter-Strike, alongside a bunch more. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay positive, stay sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.